The New England Patriots have had a great history of offensive linemen and offensive line units, as well as arguably the best offensive line coach in NFL history with Dante Scarnecchia. Well, it's been a while since the Patriots have had a solid unit really humming. Yeah, Trent Brown is still a force. Cole Strange does show some promise. David Andrews is a stalwart center. Mike Onwenu is possibly one of the best guards in the league. The right tackle, well, we'll see. But I have some hope with Reiff and Anderson coming in, along with some promising rookies. Yet, this year, injuries, surgeries, and illness have destroyed the line already, forcing the team to trade Pierre Strong and draft picks to get 2 offensive tackles to help bolster the line. On one hand, the Patriots actually have a decent line on paper, when healthy. On the other hand, the Patriots have really failed to bring in solid offensive tackle in the draft. The last great offensive tackle to be drafted by the Patriots were probably Nate Solder and Marcus Cannon in the 2011 draft. After that, I would actually have to say it was Connor McDermott, who is serviceable for his draft position. We have had several guards that have gone on to be some of the best in the league, but again, not a really extensive list. Centers have been solid for the most part, but the list of tackle duds is quite extensive. The Patriots have relied on free agency to really find some of their best O-line players, with a lot of them most likely being on the Patriots draft board during their respective drafts. The arrangement and command of free agent offensive linemen went on the shoulders of Dante, and he was able to synthesize some impressive units over the years. But Dante is not here anymore, and it was glaringly obvious last year. So, we got an issue of subpar drafts for offensive line and less than stellar coaching. I think this is obvious to the most Patriots fans, and the play in the field showcases that glaring issue. Plus, the Patriots roster moves in the offseason, draft, and preseason reflect that. So let's ask, what is the problem and what is the solution? Well, I think the Patriots need to push a lot of their chips into scouting and developing top-level offensive line talent, especially at the tackle position. I think they've hit on guards and centers consistently, yet that tackle position appears to be incredibly elusive for them in regards to the draft. Having elite tackles arguably is the second most important position on the team behind the quarterback because they protect the quarterback and the running backs, and they essentially facilitate the play. Yet, contrary to popular belief, the most difficult positions to really scout, draft, and sign in all of football is on the offensive line. I don't care what people say, offensive line is the biggest crapshoot of evaluation. The issues along the offensive front are typically of a physical variety, and in all reality, there just aren't many college players that really adapt to the NFL level. I believe there is a common misconception that scouting them is not that hard because they just show you what they can do right there on the film, whereas other positions you don't always get that opportunity. Yeah, D-backs are playing different coverages, linebackers are often system guys. You're really trying to project those guys into your system, but some coaches and scouts think you could see that pretty well with offensive linemen. I'll give it to you that your absolute best offensive linemen are obvious, and it just jumps out on tape. And that is why we could see tackles getting pushed to the top of the first round of the draft. Because you, quote, can't miss in the first round, unquote, and generally, those are the positions of most success. However, you get a handful of those guys each year. Yet, just about every team in the NFL is looking for offensive linemen each year. If you want more than one starting caliber offensive lineman in a draft, you are targeting them probably in your first and second round picks to get 2 of maybe the top 25 linemen, who are almost certainly solid players to put on your 53-man roster. After that, you gotta go digging. The problem is, there are plenty of big dudes that fit that size requirement and know the game and fulfill the baseline restrictions needed to be at least scouted to have a shot in the NFL. But finding legitimate offensive linemen is difficult because you are probably looking at Power 5 players on top-level college teams in the nation. But those guys are either first or second rounders, or not always the best linemen because they are on an elite unit and not necessarily a fit for you. You could possibly find your best by widening your search area and looking for indicators of physical potential, but most importantly, personality traits that make an NFL lineman. Individual linemen can lose matchups, yeah, but an O-line's success is determined by their collective performance. So you need to find guys who can physically play but can fit into the unit as well. Think about it. Almost every other position group on both sides of the ball can be built by getting elite talent, and the collective strength of that group improves from an individual's performance, like getting a top-level wide receiver 1. He improves the receiving core just by playing, and he doesn't need to work with the other receivers to be successful. They don't even need to be perfect fits for the system of offense that you're even running. On the other hand, offensive line requires players who fit the scheme and will gel with the rest of the current players on the offensive line. These are just some of the issues NFL teams have when they're trying to find and assemble players to make a cohesive O-line unit. Let's discuss a few concepts about scouting offensive linemen, including what are you looking for on paper, on the tape, at a combine, pro days, workouts, etc. This should help you watch the Patriots offensive line this season and be able to decipher if the Patriots are really doing a good job of bringing the right guys on. In addition, you'll be able to watch some of the potential 2024 NFL draft prospects with a more cultivated eye for offensive line talent. It's time to dive in. Now let's talk about what we're looking for on paper. Of course, there is the initial size requirement O-line guys need to meet. Being like a 6'6", 320 with 10-inch hands and 35-inch arms is a start for tackles. However, for certain schemes and positions, size can vary. College-level tackles are typically long and athletic tackles with some basketball skills and are a must to slow down the athletic defensive ends and edge rushers, linebackers of the modern era. Those ends have gotten more and more athletic as run-pass options and read option plays have put frontline defenders in more and more post-snap conflict. This is why we are seeing more and more Vipers like Keon starting to appear. Big dudes that need to be able to act as a linebacker in certain circumstances. People keep pointing out how offensive play calling has evolved, but the defense has evolved almost concomitantly. For the NFL, you are looking for similar traits, but the tackle has to be able to work in a phone booth yet cover some acreage. The RPO is deadly at the college level because the offensive line doesn't really need to block any different for an RPO, because in college, they could still block 3 yards down the field on a pass play versus only 1 yard in the NFL. College lines don't exactly have to give away the play at the snap on an RPO because they can run block long enough to allow the QB to make a decision on what to do, run or pass. The O-line can get 3 yards down the field, and the QB decides that the run is not the best decision, and he can still go for a pass without a penalty. In the NFL, it's almost like a PRO league, where the pass is probably the first option because the line can't move more than a yard down the field to get a position for a good run block. So, O-line at the NFL level is heavily dependent on scheme fit, especially for guards and even centers. Now let's talk about what we're looking for on tape. Physical attributes to the side, the ability to miss on an evaluation also has to do with what the position is allowed to do at combines and pro days. The film can lie at times too. There's no position quite like the offensive line for seeing absolute mismatches at the college level. A big-time tackle prospect might be going against a 6'5", 290 DN with 4.7 speed and 30 reps on the bench and a whole toolbox of moves one week, but then match up with a 6 foot, 250 pound DN who eats salads for lunch and wears those 4-inch inseam shorts that he stole from his sister the next week. It takes research, experience, and a keen eye to evaluate O-line talent on film. In general, when looking at tape, there are a few things I am looking for. 1. Are both cleats on the ground in their stance? looking for quarter-inch heel clearance on tackle dealing with an upright edge player? Is there a 45-degree hip abduction on the kick side leg? Is the knee rotated 45? Is the foot planted at a 45? Is the player quick off the ball? Is their body under tension prior to snap? Are they flexible? Are they stiff? Are they dropping down? Do they flex in their core? Do they dip their hips? Do they strike with force? Or is he just some big tall dude leaning on someone? Do they knock the guy back on impact? Do they love to maul and dictate their opposition? Do the tackles attempt to widen the pocket from inside out? Do the guards and centers hold the pocket depth? Do the tackles turn their shoulders too much in pass pro, opening up the inside and exposing to a bull rush? Does he get the defender with his feet and not his arms? Does he have a bad habit to get head up with the defender? Do the vertical sets adjust for the defender's alignment? Red flags come from an easy assessment of their stance and first step, or when certain O-line prospects would move standing straight up, or wouldn't engage their core or drop their hips on contact. There's a lot of things you can look at on tape. Now, let's talk about in-person assessments. Now, I used to literally carry a 1-inch PVC pipe around with me and have athletes, especially O-linemen, perform what they call an overhead squat assessment. It's one of the easiest baseline indicators that you can do with an athlete to determine if someone really isn't cut out for college ball, or in this case, the NFL. If they have too many red flags, they're either not going to perform well or they're going to get hurt. Now, the other thing I can tell is, can someone get down into a position and still be functional? In this case, quick and explosive for offensive tackles. If you want explosion, that big system has to move out with force, right? So out. You can't move out if you can't coil up. And you have to load up in your stance. You can't explode out if you don't load up by compressing. In. You have to go in order to move out. If you're functionally weak, you're too tight, and you can't get down in your stance correctly, you won't be able to explode out. You'll get dragged out, right? Not only do you have to actually get low, but you have to be able to get low and be functional. One can get low, but by being hunched over and rounded with open joints, and it's basically going to get you killed out on the front. You got to be locked and loaded, meaning joints are set, back is flat-esque with a nice little arch in the lower back, and the muscles in general are under tension. You're not just hanging out there. These are things that you could see in physical assessments, and you could see in a combine or possibly a pro day setting. Testing at the combine and pro days allow us to get players' height and weight, and then they can test the 40-yard dash times, 20-yard shuttles, 3-cone, vertical, broad jump, bench press, as well as other position-specific tests like power ball tosses to get some empirical data. From there, you evaluate if the player can mentally, emotionally, and physically survive the pressure, competition, and hard coaching that can be present at the combine or a pro day, and whether or not that player is up to snuff at these combines or pro days against other top-level players. Another test I like for offensive linemen is a hoop drill, which is sometimes presented at pro days. It involves two guys chasing through the hoops or one guy going through a course of big hoops. This shows flexibility, stability, and balance. This is where we can see a big man's athleticism. Then we can get one-on-ones, which is not necessarily the best judgment because they only focus on pass protection and the defender knows what's coming and against whom. But if done right, it can truly show who's the toughest, grittiest, nastiest guy at the bowl practice with the resiliency to keep fighting. That's what a lineman needs, that serious grit. If you can win a one-on-one, you truly are the baddest dude, and that's what's needed on an offensive line. Another thing to consider is the intangible T's: toughness, tenacity, and talkative. I want a mauler. I want someone who's personable enough to be able to form bonds with their fellow linemen and communicate when battling it out. There's nothing worse than having a giant sloth that doesn't gel with their teammates. Talking to prospects can give you a feel for the athlete and their general demeanor. Offensive linemen are thinkers and planners. This leads to dictators on the field. That has to be apparent when you interact with potential NFL linemen. Now let's talk about, do these guys have current techniques? One of the biggest concerns for NFL coaches is finding guys who are not reliant on kick sliding in pass pro. Your Power 5 and NFL players really don't do the kick slide anymore. It took a while for it to get some traction, but you should be doing more of what they call a push on post method, or something else that's very similar that's known as drive catch method. It's basically extending the inside leg and the instep of the direction the lineman in pass or run blocking. The kick slide is essentially the opposite. Now, some coaches don't understand why this works. That's fine. But it comes down to pushing back rather than reaching back. Think about walking versus running. You reach when you walk, and you push when you run. Kicks, the guys who do the kick back are kind of walking because they're reaching. Drives, or push-offs, are like running in terms of mechanics. Which one's faster? Walking versus running. Running, right? It's more athletic. Yeah. The push on post and the drive catch methods have the athlete in contact with the ground, and they have speed and they can do some redirection. They're not floating there for too long. Now, one of the issues with this is it's hard to determine or see what technique the tackle's using from a 22 tape. You gotta see them working. So you gotta spend some time with the tape and in person as much as you can. Next, so in general, what are we looking for in offensive linemen? 1, body quickness, which is essentially the first step, because you take a step and your body's moving with that first step. You're not just sticking your foot out, your whole body's moving in mass. But the next step, the second step, is foot quickness, because it's body followed by foot. Some people can make that quick first step, but they let that back foot or they let that trail leg just sit there too much. So the 1-2 first steps are so important, because you got your body quickness and your foot quickness being evident. Now, you might not think this, but what is absolutely critical is ankle and knee bend. Mobility in those joints, because it impacts their stance and their ability to move and load up and engage defenders. Next, balance and body control. I think that's obvious, but you're basically always fighting somebody that's trying to move you, get you out of the way, and get you off balance to make it easier to get past you. 5, hip unlock. Can they explode? Or do they just lean and push with their arms? If you want to see a good offensive lineman, they're going to unlock and scoop their hips into the guy and get a nice solid triple extension. You got guys that can do jammer presses, Kaiser squats, bear squats, hundreds and hundreds of pounds, and they can rattle the machines. That's what you're looking for. Now, this is all before they get any technique work, such as pass pro, set, hands, pass pro lateral movement, their anchor, their power climb to the second level, how they move in space, and just general athletic ability. The priority for the 3 subgroups of offensive line, the centers, mainly is about intelligence. Guards, you're looking for toughness and guys who are looking for work. And from tackles, you want length. So, to recap what we're looking for, first thing, size, length, lower body frame, hip width, growth potential, how big their hands are. You got tackles that have like 35-inch length arms. Awesome. Looking for bend, lower body flexibility. Can they bend in the stance with their feet on the ground? Hip flexion, ankle flexion. Can they comfortably squat in the hole with their feet flat on the ground? Can they elicit power through the joints? Can they get a triple extension? Is there a sequence of firing? Do they scoop and extend their hips forward? Is that power good enough? Can he get a second step in the ground quickly and generate power? Does he play with leverage? Can he unlock and explode through the hips? Strength and body control is next. Can he move people once he's engaged? Do they drive with power? Is there tenacity? Is there grit? Does he have balance when he's doing it? Can he stay on his feet or does he fall on the ground? Athletic ability, foot quickness. Are their feet firing? Are their feet firing on contact, or are they sinking in the sand? Do they have a strong base? Are they effective getting to the second level? Can they even run in space? Think about our screens, right? Hands. Can they punch effectively and strike through a defensive line? Strong hands once engaged, or are they playing patty cake? Do they punch in pass pro, and can you see the head move on the defender? Now, pass pro in general. Is he effective in getting in position to pass pro? Is the punch and the anchor in place? Does he look at the defender? Does he get out of his stance quickly? Does he create space? Does he get inside out? Is that vertical pass set a slide? Or is it a push post? Drive catch? Does he dictate? Of course, bringing it back, physicality, toughness, and the willingness to finish. Does he play with resolve? Does he play to the whistle? Is he willing to finish? Is he absolutely nasty? Now, that was a long list of items, and that also goes to show you how tough it is to actually scout offensive linemen. The big idea here is with all those items, you take one of those and you remove it or you weaken it up, and you're looking at a potential first-round draft pick that goes to maybe even day 3 very quickly. It really comes down to, can a staff scout well? Can a staff identify really good offensive line prospects?
All right, let's break down some tape so you guys can see what I'm talking about.
All right, going to be looking at Graham Barton, left tackle from Duke. Had a great game against Clemson. I had him in the second round at first, but now he's firmly in the first round. For me, he's looking at an upright edge there. Okay, pretty wide. We are looking at his left leg, right? So his kick leg is at F45s. So there's basically 3 45s we're looking at. Is it angled out? Perfect, yep. That means his thighs at 45, his knees at 45, and his foot is at 45. This is critical to the stance. Just a first basic check mark. Is he looking at the defender? Great. Now, when he's coming up out of his stance off the snap, does he get out of the stance quick? Does he create space? And is he using like a push and post or drive and catch method? This is important because it's showing us, was he able, prior to the snap, gauge where he needs to be? Then, is vertical set. Is it a kick first? So is his first move to move that left leg back? Is his weight over his other foot, his post foot, in this case his right foot, and do his shoulder stay square? That's helping him get prepped for the initial contact with an edge defender. Alright, so let's take a look here. That's full speed. Slow it down a little bit. Yep, so his first move was a kick step, and it does look like he's keeping his weight on his post flag. He did create space. Second glance there looked good. Let's slow it down. So there's the kick, right? But he is pushing off the inside foot nicely. Yep, he's keeping his weight. Notice how his shoulders right now are staying square, even though he's looking at the edge defender. Right, so when the edge defender comes in, he's going to be able to sit and anchor. Oh, he's going up for the deflection. All right, and I was like, this looks a little awkward for the defender, but you can see what he's doing there. All right, let's try that one more time. So he's creating space because he figured out what angle that defender was coming at. Perfect spot. And he set his anchor very nicely. Very nice there as well. Good. Yeah, all these are solid reps. Making note that these are consecutive reps too. These aren't highlights. Yeah, so he looks solid right now. That brings us to the question, do the Patriots actually scout well? Believe it or not, I would say yes. I would point to Mafi and So right now. Yeah, I would say So's scouting could be a great example of the Patriots' scouting prowess. Because, yeah, he was a guard, but his length and play does make him look like a good tackle. Now, Mafi's obviously, like I said, just a giant battle wagon. That guy's just going to maul people. You just got to give him time to get adjusted to the NFL level. Jake Andrews could be a great replacement for David. Now, Cole Strange is hard to say right now, but he has the prospects to be a solid NFL guard. And Onwenu is arguably one of the best guards in the league. I thought the Calvin Anderson move was decent. Tyrone Wheatley Jr., Verdarian Lowe trades might be solid moves. I really liked Verdarian, so I think the trade is being undersold right now. Stuber, I hope he can improve, we'll just say that. Hines looks solid, but he needs to improve in his consistency. Russi and Ferentz and Bill Murray were decent pickups, and Bill actually got claimed. And Trent Brown has been a solid starter for the Patriots over the years. So why am I spending so much time on this if I think they actually do a good job? Well, I will restate that teams need to consistently scout college and NFL talent for potential offensive line prospects. You got 5 positions on that line that need to be filled, and injuries happen, and there's at least one contract that is set to be negotiated essentially every offseason. Therefore, the Patriots need to have a Rolodex filled with offensive linemen and their current condition. Who's the best option, and at what valuation can we get them at? I believe the 2024 draft will be loaded with offensive tackle talent, which is still arguably one of the biggest areas of need even after all those recent roster moves in this offseason. I recently posted a video about my Patriots big board with over 1,000 players, and I had 50 tackles that I refined down to keep an eye on. Now, we are really 1 week into the college football season, but after watching most of the games last week, I've moved Joe Alt up, offensive tackle from Notre Dame, left tackle. I think he's probably the best left tackle. I mean, Olufushanu from Penn State, still solid, but I think Joe Alt's coming in looking a little bit better there. My favorite right tackle right now is J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Another guy that looked amazing in the Clemson game was Graham Barton. Now, Clemson is probably not as good as people think they are, but their defense is legit. And they've got studs all over the place, and Graham was picking them up. So I think Graham Barton could be a first-round draft pick coming this year. Another guy that made a big move up in my board, Tyler Guyton, right tackle from Oklahoma. Very similar to J.C. Latham. Big physical dude, nasty. Kingsley Sumataya from BYU, left tackle. He looks solid still. Another guy that popped up on my board again was Jordan Morgan, left tackle from Arizona. His technique was solid. He's really great in space. Just looks like a solid technician. Big dude too, but his technique looks very refined. Another big, awesome right tackle that we should keep an eye on is Georgia's Amarius Mims. Guy looks nasty. And on the left side there is Xavier Truss, another guy to keep an eye on. Another great left tackle is Javon Foster. I have him moving way up on my board from Missouri. Again, another great technician. Big dude, I think he's 6'6", 320, 330, 320, 330. Big dude, but very quick on his feet. Awesome in space. Blake Fisher from Notre Dame had a good game. Another big dude to keep an eye out on is Patrick Paul from Houston. He looks very raw, but I think he's got nearly 36-inch arms, big, huge hands. His technique is probably raw because it hasn't been forced to be better. I think he can do it. He definitely looks athletic enough. Jack Nelson from Wisconsin looks solid. Garrett Greenfield had a good game for South Dakota State University. Ruben Faderly, he's on my list. I got to keep an eye on him. He might be, he's moved down a little bit, but he might be moving down off the lists out of my top 20 soon. Connor Colby, another guy, again, I think he put him at right guard. Another guy to keep an eye on is Caden Wallace from Penn State. He's the right tackle opposite of Olufushanu. He has a solid game. Michigan has a couple of guys that you got to keep an eye on. Carson Barnhart He's a tackle, and then Zach Zinter is currently, I believe, the right guard. Like, he's played tackle before. And then USC has Jonah Monheim, another one of those really athletic, good technical tackles. Again, big dude, but just seems to be very light on his feet, great in space, and really great technician. So most of these guys are kind of first through third round guys, but some will make it into day 3, which is kind of crazy, where you can find some value. These tackles are worth following this year, so keep an eye out for them. There really is no excuse for the Patriots to not get a tackle in the draft that could eventually be a starter from the 2024 draft. Anyway, I hope this video is useful, and it will help you grade the Patriots' offensive line this year, just beyond following the sacks and holding penalties, pressure stats, and just general offensive production. But perhaps you can see why things are working well, or why they are a complete disaster. Moreover, you can watch college football with some knowledge and also be prepared for the 2024 draft class. So, I hope you enjoyed. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.